recent commissioner had a resignation. He filled the post. All right, it's noon, and we are going to call the meeting of the Brown County Commission back to regular order. We are privileged to have two gentlemen here to talk about innovative bridges, Mike Steenhook, Dennis Hoopy. And we made our introductions before the meeting, so have at it, gentlemen.
Go ahead and take off. Yeah, and do you have, I forwarded the slides, you have that on your screen, so okay, yeah.
This is what we're looking at.
Okay, super. So having, just going to the first slide, the second slide actually just to provide just a quick orientation of who we are. So again, Mike Steenhook with the Soy Transportation Coalition. We're a farmer-funded, farmer-led organization that is comprised of 14 state soybean associations. The Kansas Soybean Commission is one of those 14, along with the two national soybean farmer organizations. One's the American Soybean Association and the other is the United Soybean Board. American Soybean Association, they mostly involve themselves with public policy, government advocacy. The United Soybean Board is the national soybean farmer checkoff entity that administers that at the national level. Each of those organizations that's on the screen, they will appoint one or more of their own farmer directors to serve on the Soy Transportation Coalition Board. Is Raylan joining us via Zoom?
He was going
Okay.
to try.
He might join in. So Raylan Phelan is one of the two, along with Gary Robbins, are the two Kansas soybean commissioners who are appointed to the Soy Transportation Coalition Board. So you look at all those organizations together, there are 27 farmers that I'm accountable to who sit around the table and really help direct the organization. So I'm the executive director of it. And as the name suggests, we work on anything related to ways to improve the transportation system that farmers rely on. I used to work in my previous life. I worked in Washington, D.C. for a senator from Iowa, Senator Chuck Grassley. He's still in office. And one of my takeaways from working on Capitol Hill was that when policymakers talk about transportation and you ask the question, do we have transportation challenges here in the United States? The answer would invariably, oh, yes, we do. The follow-up question is, how are those transportation challenges or problems evident to you? Give me examples. You'd often hear, oh, long commute times, urban congestion. Have you ever driven the Beltway in Washington, D.C.? You'll hear those kind of testimonials. And you wouldn't often hear about the challenges of moving freight, including the freight that originates in rural America. So when I was broached with the possibility of being the staff member of this organization, it made a lot of sense to me because I really thought that there was a major deficiency when we as a nation talk about transportation challenges. There needs to be more focus. Yes, I know what it's like to be caught in urban congestion. It's frustrating, it's exasperating. But we also need to talk about the challenges of moving freight. That's very important as well, including that which is in rural America, including agricultural freight. So what we focus on is all of the links in the supply chain that farmers rely on. So that involves things like rural roads and bridges, which will be the topic of our discussion today. But it also includes highways and interstates. You'll find me working on freight rail issues, the inland waterways, including locks and dams, as well as our ports. Of all of the things planted and grown in the United States, soybeans are consistently the #1 agricultural export. Sometimes corn, they nip us in the bud, but it's usually soybeans are the #1 agricultural export. And so when my parents grew up on farms in central Iowa years ago, so much of what was produced on the farm was consumed within a pretty close proximity to the farm. My dad's farm, they had some chickens, they made their money by selling. Of course, my dad would say, wait a second, we made money. But he would say they made their money by selling eggs, by selling milk, that they had dairy cows. Some of the grain, most of the grain was actually consumed by the animals on the farm. So your market was pretty close in proximity to the farm. So yes, roads and bridges were important, but when you think about now within agriculture, over half of what is produced by soybean farmers is consumed outside the United States. So that's the reality of the industry. So you can't just occupy yourselves with growing a crop or having demand for that crop. You better do a good job of, number 3, connecting supply with demand. And that's what our transportation system does. That's why farmers care about this issue so much. That's why they created this organization. So if you want to just look at the next slide, related to the topic about rural bridges, the real, one of the fundamental challenges that we have, and you guys know this very well, given your positions, is that the area of the country in which bridges are the most problematic, it also happens to be the area of the country where resources are scarce or on the decline, and that's in rural America. Very common when you look at the various states that are a part of the Soy Transportation Coalition that you'll find counties with 100, 200, 300, 400, depends on the area of the country, but dozens and dozens of bridges is easily to say. And the cost of replacing a short span rural bridge can easily cost 100,000, $250,000, $500,000. I continue to get sticker shock, $800,000, $1 million. And we're not talking about the Golden Gate Bridge that we're building here. We're talking about rural short span bridges. So you've got, this is the cost, multiply that by the number of bridges you have. And then the third question is, well, how much money does a rural county have in its piggy bank to be able to accommodate all that? You don't have to be a mathematician to understand that the numbers don't work. And so then what's the response to that? Well, I guess we'll just have to close a bunch of bridges. Sometimes that's a hard decision to make. No one likes it, but sometimes that decision does get made. Just spend our money if it's even available. You can hope for money from other sources. My crystal ball isn't perfect, but what my crystal ball says is that there will never be enough money from the federal government, from the state government, and from local government to fully satisfy all of our rural bridge needs. Now, I've made that statement many times in many different public settings. I've never had someone come up to me and say, Mike, I dispute that. I do think there will be sufficient money from federal, state, and local government. The check is coming. The check's in the mail. I've never had someone challenge me on that. But that's what my crystal ball says. Or the fourth option is that we can find ways to try to decrease the costs of what we're trying to do. Not just focus on the revenue side of the equation, but also on the cost side of the equation. You will hear me frequently talk about the need for greater investment in infrastructure from federal, state, and local sources. But we also need to, so I'm not abandoning that by any means, but we also need to find ways to make the taxpayer dollar stretch further. So that's kind of the reality. And so we as a farmer organization, that's the dilemma. So how do we respond to that? We could just simply shake our fists at municipal and county government and say, why aren't you guys doing a better job? And we can do that. And some farmers do that. I'm sure you've received some very pleasant emails sometimes about potholes and bridges and stuff like that.
We're pretty gentle here in Brown County.
Well, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. The ratio of thank you notes that you receive versus critical emails is probably not 1-to-1. I assume that, maybe. But so we could certainly do that, or we could find ways to maybe be a part of the solution. We're not the engineers ourselves. And so, but we thought we could play a role as a farmer organization to help really be a part of the solution instead of part of the problem, or at least complaining about it. And so what we did is a number of years ago, and if you want to go to, it's actually the fourth slide, we did a report called the Top 20 Innovations for Rural Bridge Replacement and Repair. And again, I'm not an engineer. Again, just to back up, I'm based out of the Iowa Soybean Association building in the town of Ankeny, Iowa, so Des Moines area. What we ended up doing with this report is that I became increasingly acquainted with a number of engineers throughout the country who are doing some pretty innovative things to replace bridges at a fraction of the cost without compromising safety. And I thought, we need to do a better job of highlighting that. And then maybe that's something that we could do to help actually be a part of the solution. So we commissioned a study, a report. And again, I'm not an engineer, but So it wasn't going to be me that was going to identify what are the bridges that should make this list or not. But I established the criteria, and the criteria was to make it on the list, it had to check 3 boxes. The first box was, does it provide significant cost savings? We weren't looking for, hey, if you do this approach, you'll achieve a 5% cost savings. That's not something that's really, I mean, that's nice, but that's not something that's really seismic. So significant cost savings. So I was looking at 25% cost savings or greater. Number 2 is that it had to be valid from an engineering perspective. I wasn't looking for someone to come in and submit a proposal where 2 guys were at the bar and they sketched out some like concept on the back of the cocktail napkin. And it had to be something that had been submitted, reviewed by a credible engineering entity. So and I told the group, on every concept that we have at the bottom, there will be a URL link that will point the reader to a study, to an analysis that an engineer would say is credible, that you can then look to and see, oh, it's valid from an engineering perspective. That was number 2. Number 3, it had to be accessible in a large area of rural America. I know that every location is different, but I wasn't looking for a concept that would only apply to one very idiosyncratic area in one corner of one state. It would have to be something that, an engineer from the state of Kansas, from Iowa, Missouri, et cetera, would be able to look at and say, well, maybe this is something that's applicable to us, to our rural area. So that was the criteria. So then I assembled a group of 13 bridge engineers throughout the states that were a part of the Soy Transportation Coalition. And they were the ones that actually selected the concepts. 10 concepts for replacing a rural bridge, 10 concepts for repairing a rural bridge. We came up with this number 20. There's nothing magical about the number 20. There's not only 20 good concepts out there for replacing and repairing rural bridges, but my approach was there would be no easier way for someone not to read the report if it was the top 526 concepts for replacing. So the number had to be big enough that had some variety to it. So now I wasn't going to have just the one concept. So it had to be, a small and a large enough number that there was some variety, but small enough that it was a relatable, something that someone would actually look at. So, because one of the things and so that was our role, is to have this report developed. It's kind of been my observation that when there's a good idea out there, and we experience this a lot, where there'll be some great idea out there and you'll think, why isn't this idea being more widely replicated and embraced? Could be a transportation idea, could be any good idea. And we experience that a lot in life. And it's kind of a human kind of, fault of ours. But it usually, when I look at it, that usually is the result of one of 3 things, one of 3 lacks. Number 1, it's a lack of awareness of that good idea, where it's like, I've never heard of that before. Number 2, it could be a lack of understanding of that good idea. And that's when someone says, oh yeah, I've kind of heard about that, but isn't there a problem of A, B, C, and 1, 2, 3? And some of those challenges might be valid, and some, more often than not, they're not. So a lack of awareness, a lack of understanding, or number 3, it's a lack of motivation, where you encounter someone who says, hey, it sounds like a good idea, but I've done it this way for the last 30 years. Thank you very much. And I'm just really not willing to deviate from that. So as a farmer organization, our thought was, well, we can help with that because we can disseminate information to a pretty substantial group of people. And then maybe we can find a way to help actually partner with some of these decision makers to actually help to move that along. I'm not going to go through the next slide with railroad flat car bridges. I'm not going to go through all 20 of the concepts. That report is available if you would like to see it. But I wanted to highlight just a handful of the ones that really have resonated with people when we've presented this. By the way, none of these concepts are hypotheticals. That was something else I wanted on the list. I wanted them to be real bridges that have been built, that someone can go and drive over them And you can actually talk to the engineer who's actually built them and to hear a firsthand testimonial. Don't talk to me about it. Talk to the engineer who actually built it. I wasn't looking for something that some college professor had on his or her shelf that what a great idea, but no one's done it. But it's boy, on paper, it sure looks good. We wanted something that was actually real. And one of them is this whole concept of railroad flat car bridges. Significant time savings to build these. You know, you're looking at easily 50 to 60% cost savings. The next slide presents a picture of a couple of them. There's one particular engineer that I've become friends with in Northeast Iowa, in the county, the Buchanan County, Iowa. If you're familiar with Iowa, it's Buchanan County is just east of where Waterloo is, where John Deere has a major presence. The University of Northern Iowa is. And he has built 32 bridges via this method, railroad flat car bridges. The first one he built, and I drove over it, was in 2000, 2005, but it's over 20 years old. And it cost him about 75,000. This was over 20 years ago. But that kind of cost savings that he was able to achieve. And he said, Mike, I've not paid a cent on this bridge. And every day people are using it. And that's the kind of performance he's gotten from it. If you want to go to the next slide, they can even get pretty elongated. So one that we just partnered with, this one it's either the longest or the second longest railroad flat car bridge in the country. There's not some Guinness Book of World Records group that's going to be certifying this, but this one was built last year. It's 135 feet in length by 28 feet in width. They had 6 railroad flat car bridges that they used to build it. And again, you can Google Iowa State University railroad flat car bridges. You can Google Purdue University railroad flat car bridges, and you'll get a study that says this is very valid from an engineering perspective. But this one was particularly, we wanted to kind of partner on the construction of this one because it's just so notable. So again, 6 flat car bridges, so 3 across, 1, 2, 3, and then 2 rows of them. And they bolt them together. You have to first make sure that these railroad flat cars they're not rust buckets. You investigate them to make sure, okay, these still have the steel is all, very valid and intact. But then he actually built one, and the actual results of it were quite profound. So the final cost to construct this bridge was $300,000. He said, Mike, if I would have had to bid this out, where we would have just, poured concrete, steel, and all of that, the cost would have been easily $900,000. So you're talking about a $600,000 cost savings for one rural bridge. I don't know of a single rural county that wouldn't benefit from that kind of cost savings. How did we partner with them? We provided some funding to underwrite some of the pre-engineering and design expenses of building that bridge. But then we actually paid for a camera to be positioned at the outset of that and capture the entire building of that bridge. So that link at the bottom underneath that picture, you can click on that and you can watch a 2-minute time-lapse video of it being constructed. And you can see in 2 minutes, a county saved $600,000. Now that's a unique bridge, that it's that long. Most of the railroad flat car bridges there's like 2 wide and just 1 in length. They're really good for, truly short spans, 20 feet in length, 30 feet in length, those kind of things. But there's a lot of bridges like that throughout rural America. So you're finding, that kind of cost savings associated with that. The next one that's really of interest to a lot of these engineers who selected it was the whole concept of vibratory H-piling drivers. That's a method of building bridges. That's one of the tools, but it has real profound cost savings. And if you want to look at the next slide, that's what it actually looks like. So you attach it to an excavator, and the vibratory H-piling driver is that in kind of on the right-hand side, that orange yellowish kind of square that's attached to the excavator. And it replaces and it's a substitute for the traditional way of driving piling, which is like a hammer and a nail. You just keep pounding it. And this one, it just vibrates it in. By the way, if you watch the time-lapse video I just referenced, they actually use the vibratory H piling. So you can see piling actually getting driven that way. It's much faster, it's safer, and profound cost savings. So, the engineers who have used them, they'll give testimonies that, yeah, I spent $2,000 to $3,000 to have a bunch of piling driven. Normally the impact method would have cost me 10 times that. And so that's a real, and you'll find with some counties that, as you guys know as well, if not better than I do, counties they'll share things. They'll have partnerships where I buy piece of equipment A, you county buy a piece of equipment B, and then we have an arrangement where you can share. And so you'll have these counties that may have purchased one of those. And then another county will say, hey, I've got some piling I need to drive. I mean, it's within reason. You have to justify the cost. So it's usually counties that are relatively close by. So they're not going to drive across to, the other side of the state, for example. But those kind of arrangements, you've seen it, and it's just really provided significant cost savings for these counties. Buried soil structures, next slide. Another really good solution for a lot of counties, so building a bridge for less than $100,000 versus $150,000, $200,000. They look a lot like box culverts. If you look at the next slide, gives you a couple pictures of what they look like. Again, really good solution for rural roads. And the challenge for folks in your position is you've got these roads and you've got these bridges that you look at the daily traffic and it's like, it's hard to really justify $500,000 to replace this bridge when the average daily traffic is this. And so, but then it's like, oh, if you close them or if you load post them, I don't want to do that. You don't close them all together. There's obviously repercussions on things like emergency response and, school, busing and all of those types of things. Obviously it's an inconvenience. It's a cost for farmers if they have to incur a detour. So some of these solutions are just they're really good ones. And
a buried soil structure is probably out of all of them so far. That's something that the county could self-perform.
Yeah. And you find with a lot of these in this whole journey, I mean, I've given presentations, I've had discussions like this in so many different states, and every state's different, of course. Some states have their own county engineer, some of them have a highway superintendent, some rely more on contractors than others. It really kind of runs the gamut. Some of them have their own crew that they can do more elaborate things. Others have crews that can do more simple things, modest things. So it really just kind of depends. But like with Buchanan County, Iowa, they have their own county engineers in Iowa, and he has his own crew. And they've gotten so good at these railroad flat car bridges. They're just like, hey, it's just almost on autopilot now that they do them, and very comfortable with that whole process. But so yes, especially when you as a county, then you've got your own workforce that can do it. Then it's like, hey, we've practiced it now. We're really good at it. And they tend to find a couple different concepts that just really work well for them. So they kind of have latched onto them.
Where do you source railroad flat?
There's a number of suppliers. So the guy from Buchanan County, Iowa, there's a place outside of Kansas City. He usually goes, I think it's on the Kansas side. But they, railroads they are constantly upgrading their inventory, their rolling stock. And sometimes railroads own the cars, and sometimes it's a company that leases cars. I mean, that's more typical now, is that most of the railroads basically just own the locomotives and the track these days. Others own the actual flat cars or they lease them. So whoever owns it, they constantly need to just update it to be more in sync with the 21st century economy. It's not that these Obviously, if there's a defect or if a degradation of the asset, yes, you have to get rid of it. But a lot of times, these railroad flat cars, they still have their full structural integrity to them. And so this guy from Buchanan County, I mean, it's a drive for him, but it's about 5 hours for him. Goes down to Kansas City and he knows what to look for now, but then but there's it's not rocket science.
Sure.
And so he will look for them. And then it's like, okay, that one's a good one. That one's a good one. And then they deliver it. The folks, the main options, if you purchase retired flat cars, is to basically scrap them. You get about, I don't know if this 2025 figures, but about $2,000 to $4,000 per car. The county engineer from Buchanan County, he'll buy them for $25,000 to $30,000 a car. So that's a good deal for them. It's a good deal for the county because then they're building a bridge for $100,000, $150,000 at the most, unless it's something more elaborate, like which I just showed you. So there's a number of places that he's got, that they've got suppliers for it. Interestingly, we had nothing to do with this, but so in late 2024, of course, Hurricane Helene ravaged, a number of the southeastern part of the United States, including North Carolina. The North Carolina DOT, because of the damage to the infrastructure, they actually had an initiative where they replaced 40 of their rural bridges using the railroad flat car method. You can Google North Carolina DOT railroad flat car bridges, and you can see. And so it's a way to, we were able to replace them quickly, get the infrastructure back up and running in a very cost-effective way. But yeah, so some of these others, so the buried soil structures, that's another real good option. Another one is the geosynthetic reinforced soil integrated bridge system, GRS-IBS. Only the federal government would come up with a title like that. It was developed actually by the Federal Highway Administration. Some of these concepts were more the universities were kind of on the cutting edge of this. Some of them are government agencies. This one was developed by the Federal Highway Administration. If you want to look at the next slide, that one with the wood railings, that was a picture I took in Midland County, Michigan. Midland County's in central Michigan. And he said, Mike, everything that you're looking at was purchased at the local Menards. I mean, it's a way of, sometimes, for some counties, you're further removed from some of the inputs that you need for a bridge. Mm-hmm. And this was one of the motivations for the Federal Highway Administration to develop this GRS-IBS approach, was to design a system where the inputs are more accessible. So the abutments are cinder blocks basically, and then you have to lay this synthetic material to kind of keep it stable. There's this method that they have to use. Yeah, question.
What kind of synthetic material what is this like?
Yeah, I mean, it's this black kind of tarp it looks like what you put down. It's not, looks when you're putting it down for a base for your yard, for your lawn to restrict.
So they put it on a railroad road sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah. Yeah. And so I think you can see, well, we can kind of see it on the other abutment, but and so there's been some county engineers who have used that very effectively as well.
Past the cement block.
It looks like, yeah, yep. And so that's another option. So so one of the things that we've done is to try to get back to what are the reasons why good ideas don't get embraced: the lack of awareness, lack of understanding, lack of motivation. So we've been talking about it, hopefully to increase awareness of it and increase understanding. But one of the things that we've done to help increase motivation is that we've successfully done a number of projects where we will actually provide some funding for it's usually a county to help offset some of the costs of building that bridge. Now, we're not a venture capital firm. We don't have Elon Musk kind of money. But some of the things that we've done where we'll provide some funding to help offset some of the pre-engineering and design expenses. So there's always an architectural rendering you have to do. There's always kind of some pre-engineering work you have to do. We'll help underwrite some of the costs of that. We make very clear in the arrangement, the agreement, that the county, the municipality, whoever, you are the owner of that bridge. We are not in the business of trying to own bridges or partial ownership. And so, but sometimes that's all you need for someone who, I mean, if someone is just adamantly opposed to anything like this, a $10,000, a $20,000, a $30,000 inducement won't be enough to get that person interested. But sometimes there are folks who are like, you know, this sounds like a pretty good idea. That funding, that's enough for us to take a look at it. Let's try it once. And if we like it, we'll keep doing it. So we've actually had some projects where we've done that, where we've, you know, provided some funding in the neighborhood of, you know, some have been less than 10,000, sometimes they've been 15, they've been, you know, there's offers of up to 30 that we've done to help offset some of that cost, just to kind of help where farmers are saying, hey, we're going to put our money where our mouth is, to really encourage that county to maybe look at something. So we've made some of that offer, and I know, you know, Kansas Soybean, they have some funding available to do a project like this. There was just one, it was just in Osage last year, that Raylan had met with his, you know, county commissioners, and they had a bridge that was needed to be replaced, and they ended up doing a project. I assisted with it, but Kansas Soybean actually provided the funding, you know, for it. So we have an example in the state where we've done that.
What kind of bridge is that?
It had the buried soil structure kind of element to it. You know, every bridge is kind of like, well, it's got a little bit of this in it and it's got a little bit of that, but yeah. And so, but we've had this, we've talked about this, but you know, there are a lot of times that we don't get much of a response, you know, from a county, from municipalities. And it really, you know, on that next slide after the GRS IBRS, where I talk about the 4 main reasons for resistance, sometimes it's, you know, simply not aware of the concepts. Or a vague familiarity with it. We talked earlier about there is a lot of times timidity or reluctance to try anything new. Now, one of the things that I wholeheartedly agree with, I hear this all the time and I say amen every time I hear it, is people say engineers are very conservative people by nature. And I say, my response to that is, may it always be that way. If I was an engineer and I had to sign my name that this bridge is safe, that is a very sober experience. I better make sure that all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. I'm not just going to do anything that's the latest and the greatest. It has to be something that makes sense. So I totally wholeheartedly agree with that. But that doesn't mean that we should be closed to any good idea. I mean, if it's checking the boxes, the engineering boxes, then we should be open to those things. But that is a reason for that you'll get pushback.
That's one thing going to the Kansas Association of Counties and the county employees state meetings is, well, we were here, well, we've always done it this way, and we're just very comfortable with what we're doing. We don't really want to try a new concept, even though it would save a lot of money. And that's what gets very frustrating. And I think Raylan, if he can come off mute, could address what he ran into down in Chase County. But we do have funds. We have funds from the Kansas Soybean Commission will authorize up to $10,000 for engineering purposes. As Mike says, we don't buy the stone, we don't buy the concrete, we don't buy the iron, but we can do anything pre-production, basically.
Yeah.
And we'll pay or offset up to $10,000 in a particular county and state. And when we first put this in several years ago, I don't know how many years ago, we really thought, oh, it won't take long to have one in each commissioner soybean commissioner district, across the state. Well, it does not work that way. And in fact, Wayland is only the second bridge that we've done, I think, in the state, and I'm not sure the first one even applied for funding. If, I know Wayland has, Wayland, can you come on, or are you, in the combine and can't talk?
Do you hear
Yes.
me? Okay. Hey, I'm gonna pull over. I'm driving. I'm on a parts run at the moment, so I've been listening in. And Mike, thank you for covering this very well. I mean, he hit really what kind of got down the weeds and talked about, but also gave a good overview. But yeah, as far as Osage County, I guess it's probably been a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago, I met with our county commissioners and just told them what was going on. And we had some funding available. And so it was last summer, I believe it was, that they said, "Hey, we're try one of these ideas." And so we did. And I told them, there's up to $10,000 available for the pre-engineering costs. And I believe we only ended up using what, $4,000 to $5,000, Dennis, wasn't it?
That's correct.
And so it really went pretty smoothly. We did. And where this bridge, it wasn't a high dollar bridge by any means. I think the costs were, correct me if I'm wrong, Dennis, I'm thinking there's in 150,000 and it would have cost 300,000 to 400,000.
Yes, I think you're correct.
So, significant savings, and it's a good, and I would really encourage you guys. Okay, encourage you guys to take a look if you could. Are there any questions,
One thing.
or did I lose you?
We still got you, Raylan.
One thing that we found, probably.
Yeah. How you doing, Lucas?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking.
More successful in is when a county, the road and bridge person retires and a new one comes on. Or they hire a new engineering firm that is responsible, and then it seems like, well, they aren't quite as ingrained, and this is the way we do it, or it's always done it. So that has helped us a little bit, but even that, like I said, this is the first time that we've expended commission money, and we do have funds still available that we would like to get the concept spread out more throughout the state.
So we are in a period, I mean, interesting to bring that up. We're in a period of transition in this county. The commission's pretty open-minded to things like this, because we got 3 bridges on our plate, and all of them are very, very expensive. One of them is $1 million bridge, a 90-10 type grant with the state. But, I think you mentioned numbers. We have 195 in the county, my memory serves, bridges, and the average lifespan is supposed to be around 75 years. And if I remember all the chart, we're well into the average lifespan of all these bridges. So I don't know if you I like the idea. That's why we asked you down here. We all sort of liked it. I don't know where the resistance would be here. We don't do our own bridge work. The county road department, we are looking to do some reorganization, so the time may be perfect for something new like this. We do rely on B&G Consultants is our engineer. And I don't know if you've ever dealt with them. I don't know what they would say.
Yeah, and that can be sometimes one of the areas of pushback where it's like, well, we've never done one of these. I had a visit with and I hope they take me up on it. There was an engineering firm that I visited with, and I said, if you become familiar with one of these concepts, wouldn't that be a great service to provide to your client counties? Is that, hey, we've got this other arrow in our quiver that you can consider from all of the ones that we're doing. And so,
that's for you.
But that is something you do encounter. It's like, well, we as an engineering firm, consultant firm, we've got our 10 that we will use for counties and maybe these are not included in that 10. We also encounter it also sometimes some opposition when federal dollars are included. Now, you mentioned this would be at 90-10 state,
That's what
local.
this one would
Okay.
be.
But yet, just to keep in the back of your mind, if federal dollars are involved, the way I like to describe this, then you have to pick one of the options from the catalog, the federal catalog.
Sure.
And so, and again, you want to make sure that things are valid, but so a lot of these, like the guy in Northeast Iowa will say, what he'll do is like, well, hey, with some of these innovative approaches, again, it has to be valid from an engineering perspective. I'll use our local or state dollars for that. But then ones that that are federal dollars, well, I have to do it from the federal catalog, if you will. So, so yeah, that's just kind of in short, that's the last slide that I had.
And I think an important thing to emphasize is Mike, when he set up this committee of 13 or 17, whatever you said, they were all State Department of Transportation officials. In fact, Kansas had one.
They're on the
that was
list.
Very supportive of the idea, and not to get his name on it.
Oh, and it's actually Calvin Reed.
Oh, that's right.
He was the bridge engineer. This was when before he became director. But he was the head of the bridge office at the time, and he agreed to be one of those that provided feedback.
So if you're in our spot and say we had a bridge that comes up for replacement. And we decided as a commission, as a county, we wanted to try this. How do you, totally different. How do you start out? If you have this in mind, like a railroad flat car, that's what we're gonna do. How do you start that process?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously you have to have the approval of whoever is going to build your bridges. And let's say BG consultants, I don't know what they would say. Maybe, let's say they would be open to it, but we've never really done one before. What you can do is I would put you in touch with the county engineer in Buchanan County who's done 34 of them, and to kind of walk through that process about, because again, eventually they have to put their name on the list. They have to sign their name. This is a safe bridge. And to kind of, just walk through that entire process. Here's where we get the railroad flat cars from. Here's kind of what it looks like. You want to make sure if you're going to use that method, you want to make sure it's this kind of location. You hear this all the time from engineers, location, 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 and so maybe the railroad flat car is not good for this particular bridge. Maybe the buried soil structures is better for it.
Sure.
The things to kind of look for. But this guy from Buchanan County, he's the previous president of the National Association of County Engineers. So this is not some cowboy who's just like off on his own. Has wide acclaim from his colleagues.
And
But-
he's willing to share?
He's an evangelist. for this.
Okay.
Yeah. He's actually retiring at the end of this year, and he's going to be doing some consulting work. So one of the things that we're in the discussion is that could we actually hire you to actually go around and then do
This guy's
some of the,
about 5 hours from Brown County, is that right?
yeah. So, it's 3 hours for me from Des Moines to get here, and he's another 2 hours northeast of where I am. So, yeah.
One thing we might do in the future, if you get to this point, is we could do a Zoom with Roland and you and I and you all and your B&G consultant, and then maybe get Buchanan County engineer on and
Yeah.
just have a little discussion so that maybe B&G will, because I think we have to work on that.
Yeah.
That seems to be a lot of the holdups, a lot of, not necessarily their company.
Well, and maybe a first thing is that, again, get him plugged in with the county engineer from Buchanan County, but then also there is substantiating research. I mean, again, I mentioned Purdue University, Iowa State University that have done, I don't know if K-State's I don't know if they've ever done anything on railroad flat car bridges, but I mean, there's research to kind of like, hey, look at this? What do you think?
Question, if you just go 2 cars wide, how wide is it then? 15 feet or 16 feet?
They're usually about 8 to 9 feet in width. So you put them two together and you're usually getting about
16 to 17.
Yeah, yeah, this one, I mean, this real long one was 3 wide and that was 28 feet in length.
And on those, so can you put those on a ski bridge where they go straight across?
That's, you have to watch for that. Yes.
It'd be
Yeah,
a
because
little
that's,
difficult.
yeah,
That's one we're trying to get built.
That's where you get center abutments in the middle of the creek and change your direction.
mhm,
Well, it's not changing the direction, it's just not going straight across, it's going at an angle across.
mhm.
Oh, sure.
Cause the creek goes,
So it's not perpendicular.
yeah, it goes,
Yeah.
it goes straight across the road, it goes at an angle across the road.
Yeah,
But these things sit on their own abutments. You're pouring, is that like a cast in place
Yeah.
abutment that you're
Mhm.
putting in?
correct.
But, so they want to- and these pile drivers, can they drive closer, they just drive 8 speeds?
He's talking about the bugger.
Yeah,
I think.
I think you can, yeah, I mean, I would be, yeah. Yeah, we can easily get that in. I can get
Well,
that.
that's okay.
Okay.
Do we have bridge projects where they're putting wood in?
Well, if you build one of those hunchback bridges, you gotta drive all those posts in to build your forms.
Oh, yeah.
And that seems like that takes a long time with a pile driver.
Mhm.
So when I said that 195 number two, there's also county is responsible for any tube over 24 inches.
25 square feet.
Square feet in opening.
Mhm.
So when you add that in there, those soil, what do you call them? Soil structures.
Buried soil structures.
Buried soil structures, you know, we may have a lot more room for things like that, too,
Mhm.
because we have a lot of box culverts and such, and so it'd be interesting, we had that one tube under Sear, it's a 7-foot diameter tube, very long, 70 feet, and it was a pretty expensive project to do that. Do you ever have like cost comparisons on like that, the buried soil structure? I mean, is that inexpensive when compared to a bridge, or is that inexpensive when compared to, say, a tube? Once they get to a certain size.
I don't know. It depends on we ran our comparisons based on
Sure.
what would be just a typical bridge,
Sure.
but
There's just so many, I mean. Where they're saving a lot of money, obviously, is the structure of the bridge. The abutments are kind of similar, I'm
sure.
assuming.
Yeah.
Your abutments are gonna be your abutments based on your soil and your span and all that. But the actual cost of the material, whether it's like an open girder bridge or a cast bridge, that's where they're saving all their money, is being able to buy a railroad car. That's already your structure, and you're not going in there pouring your false deck and all the
Mhm.
things that are associated with bridges. Or could be associated with bridges. That's where your real savings is.
Yeah.
I'm assuming.
Yeah.
And Mike showed you 3 variations, some of the railroad and then the soil structure. That it
Mm.
went on it. But there's also 7 or 8 more that, might apply
Mhm.
in a different situation.
Right. Yeah.
But you're right, that, so we've been really lucky, right? We're living in an era where the bridges were put in before our time as commissioners. Their lifespan is X, and we're pushing those lifespans, but within so many years, we're gonna be looking at a lot of little bridges around
Right.
the county that it's
Mhm.
like, they've been fine, but they're gonna need to be replaced. The smaller spans, to me, this is something that, we may
Right.
have 20 of these things to do in the next 15 years or whatever.
Right.
And we haven't had, it's been kind of sporadic.
Sure.
But we don't
Sure.
start looking forward right now.
Right.
That's why if you can, like he said, Buchanan County, they ended up having, sounds like a crew that was self-performing a lot of it and kind of became the experts in doing it.
Mhm. Yeah.
I'm sure the first couple, they were
Yeah.
a little nervous, but by the 5th one, they're probably like, we can do these things.
Yeah.
We could develop a way that Brown County is using, the buried soil structures and have crews that are familiar with that.
Yeah,
Benefits us for years and years down the road.
Right.
Used to have a bridge crew, but I think we need to look into it again.
Yeah, they used to, back in the 80s, I remember you had a bridge department, they would go out and build
Mhm.
smaller bridges
Right.
in-house.
Yeah, I talked to one of the guys who was actually on the work crew that builds the railroad flat car bridges. His words were like, they're the only ones, I mean, they've done others, but it's like, they're the only ones we really like to do, because they're just, they they're just so good at it now. And it was kind of funny, that you mentioned there's kind of this number that you want to, when you build a bridge, you need it to be in existence for 75 years, and one of the local sources of pushback in Buchanan County with these railroad flat cars is like, can you certify it'll be available for 75 years? And it's like, I don't know if the research has actually documented that, but last year I drove over the first one he built, and I think it was like, it was either 2000 or between 2000 and 2005. And so here you have a bridge where and back then it cost like $75,000. And he hasn't, in Brian's words, I haven't spent a dime on it in the intervening 20 years. So do you think the citizens of that county think that's a pretty good deal for them?
I mean, like that railroad bridge is basically like an open girder bridge. So what
Yeah.
you're doing in the future is you're protecting it in place, make sure it doesn't rust, right?
Right.
So 10 years from now, you go in and you look at it and
Yeah.
it might need to be painted or whatever. That steel is going to be there as long as you protect it.
Yeah. Now he usually uses those for gravel roads because of paved roads, you're applying salt, and so you want to kind of keep the salt off the.
We don't. In our county, we didn't put salt,
Okay. Yeah.
maybe a few intersections.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
What kind of decks are they wood decks, metal decks?
no, they pour concrete on them.
Okay, after they. put the flat cars in
Yeah.
Concrete.
Well, I mean, it's usually gravel. They'll pour gravel over them,
Oh, okay.
but you can do,
Yeah, you can
you can,
do an AC overlay, you can do
Yeah.
concrete overlay on them to a certain point for weight.
The
Mhm.
gravel they create drain holes through the bridge down, just make
Mhm.
sure that it's not holding water.
yeah.
I mean, it sounds very workable, and your group would be a willing, I guess, facilitator in this if we needed to connect. certain
Mhm.
people.
Yep.
Because you're your engineer in Iowa, so like a good point of contact.
Yeah.
Especially if he retires and gets into the consulting side, do you envision him working with you, kind of part of your team?
That's something that we're discussing with. It's like,
Yeah,
what does that
yeah.
look like? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. 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 Cause that could be another one of those barriers with where it's like, hey, I'm not an engineer. I need to kind of certify that this thing is going to be workable. And then, hey, we've got a local crew that can build it, but I need someone to come in and say, design it, direct it, certify it.
So this fits in, I mean, I think, well, I'll speak for me. My goal is to try to think of ways to utilize county funds to save us some money and in big ways. I mean, it's nice to save a couple thousand here
Mhm.
or there, but if you can save 100,000, that's a big deal. And especially if you get a product that's, the same or better quality. And actually we could utilize, in-house labor too. I mean, the returns could be significant. And I'm not afraid to try new things. I mean, I love it. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I was involved in a lot of design build projects on the West Coast.
Okay.
I don't know if you're familiar with the design build,
Sure.
all that
Yep.
is.
Yeah.
And that's fundamentally changed the way things are getting done out there.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy. And so the firm, I retired from actually. They were part of some of the larger design build projects in the United States, and it was always fun to be in it in the beginning. And that's what that's all about. That's coming in with your own design. Something that hasn't been tried yet
Mhm.
and looking for a cost savings to the owner.
Right.
So to me, this is like a mini design build project.
Sure. Yeah. 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 And I will say, since we're talking about, I haven't really encountered this a lot because I'm really working with counties, which is they're not the they're not the big chunk of the pie when it comes to transportation dollars in a state. But there are interests that like the expensive way we continue to do things. The folks that pour lots of concrete and buy lots of steel, that like if some of these concepts were just to would proliferate throughout all these states, you would get more pushback on that. But when we're talking about, no one cares a whole lot about a 30-foot bridge on
Right.
rural road XYZ. But but that is something that, yeah, I think as this continues, that you could encounter some pushback from those.
Feeling you-
Yeah,
issues that you see on the east.
right. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, so yeah, I mean, any way we can be of service to you to make connections for you to learn more. We welcome that opportunity. So,
I think it's fascinating because they say the liability that's down the road from us, right now, we're in kind of a sweet spot where the bridges are still
mhm,
structurally sound, but there's going to be a time if we're not looking forward and saying, hey, because this county can't afford to do 5 bridges.
mhm,
Right?
right,
And there could possibly be some years down the road, where we have 5 bad bridges, during the same time, especially if you get some big storms that take out some structure or cause damage to abutments. All of a sudden, we're looking at a number of bridges. We just don't have a budget to go out there and replace them all.
yeah,
I know the one that, right on that in Chase County, the structure itself, every time they had a storm, the bridge deck would end up 100 feet down the pit. So they'd have to go down and get it back up on the structure, and that's one reason, and they hated to close that particular road, because there were some farms that would be trapped within there, that couldn't get their products out and things like that, so it all makes a lot of sense if we could figure out a cheaper way to do it, and we don't wanna go over our time here, because I think you have certified election or something.
Already do that, but seem like the abutments are about as big a problem here as anything washing up. Some of your pictures look like I thought was our picture are deeper than all these pictures are. Some of them are pretty deep.
mhm,
And some of them have increased quite a bit over the last 4 years.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's where the engineer comes in on the.
Um,
In Iowa, do they take this thing from paper to functionality? Then, I mean, you're that Buchanan County crew, does they pour all the concrete? I mean. The abutments,
Yeah,
all
they
this.
pretty much do everything, yeah.
If I was looking at that, I would say that the one, unless they have a really big crane, they probably bring it in a sub to set them, because that takes
Yeah.
a substantial size crane to set those.
Yeah, yeah,
So I could see where they're doing all the dirt work and abutments and all that in-house, and then setting it with a crane service.
Sure.
Most places don't have a crane sitting around those.
And that's how that too, but more shooting, that's how,
Yeah.
so our guys
Yeah.
do. They
Sure.
hire a company.
yeah, and you won't. I don't know exactly who provided the crane, but if you watch that time lapse video,
Yeah.
you'll see them getting.
Yeah, I
that-
tried, it just went to,
Oh, it did?
well, it may just be, our internet is
Okay.
a little slow here.
Okay.
So Calvin Reed was pretty enthusiastic, used about him.
I'm sorry, who?
Calvin Reed.
Oh, well, yeah, he was very supportive of the project, and he had really good feedback, and now, I mean. And when we did a release on this one long railroad flat car bridge, I mean, he sent me an email and said, hey, are you doing this type of stuff in Kansas? And so he wants to be supportive. I mean, but again, I mean, he's managing an entire state department, so I don't expect him to.
Interesting, his in-laws live in this county.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
are there any of these type bridges in Kansas already that you're familiar with?
Well, I asked him that, and he said we might have some, he said we might have some, and I haven't heard back from him yet, so I don't know the answer to that question.
It'd be interesting, because you know how I've worked around engineers my whole life, and you know how they are. It's like once they see one's already in place in that
Mhm.
area, they're a lot more comfortable accepting.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And if not, we can always get them up to Iowa and look at those.
right,
I
right.
don't know how close, if there's closer ones, then clear up there.
Yeah, I think there are, yeah, but, yeah. So, yeah, that could be a good next step would be, even just doing a conference call, Zoom meeting with him, and just to like, hey, we're looking at, here are several of the bridges that we're kind of thinking about, would love to just get your thoughts. I will warn you, he is a very enthusiastic person about saving counties money. And so it's kind of like, you have to restrain him, like, don't throw too much, but he's got lots of ideas, and I think he's one of the best public servants I've ever encountered. I mean, I've encountered a lot of people in my career. But yeah, so that could be a good next step. So,
Wonderful.
yeah. Yeah. So
Well, thank you.
you
gentlemen,
bet. Thank you
coming
for
up.
your time. Yeah,
Raylan,
appreciate it.
Thank him for me also, I guess.
Thank you for allowing us to do this.
Well, this is wonderful. I mean, I hope.
Oh, I love this kind of stuff.
Yeah. So,
I was just sitting here thinking when people talk about cranes, was thinking and facetiously, but I was thinking, why don't you get about 4 or 5 county farmers together, they'll figure out how to set that sucker.
Oh,
up.
Motor tractor, yeah.
So that's in here, he is. Can you tell me more about that?
That's basically what they do in Chase County. Isn't it? Mike?
yeah, it's very
Yeah.
similar. Yeah.
So, Ryland was from Osage County.
Or Osage, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Osage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which one is that, Bill?
That one.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
I'm trying to think. I mean, you guys put out a release on that, what you did.
was in
and
the
did,
magazine.
did it have a picture of the bridge?
I'm sure Amanda had several pictures of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was in one of the Kansas Farmer magazines, I believe.
And the not Kansas Farmer, but Republic paper, whatever it is. I'll turn some of that stuff up and consider that. We could see.
Okay.
Thanks for your time.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thank
it. Yeah.
Yeah, I really do think this was really.
Thank you for.
Long drive then.
My pleasure.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Paul, nice to see you. I'm sure we've seen each other before. We look so familiar. And it's not because I sit on Sandy's lap. Look, how's your day?
All right, so that was wonderful. I mean, that's ideas, concepts. Sounds like maybe we have a plan, and he took the business card there, so hopefully get him connected. I mean, any other closing?
So Mike, so BG, we're under contract with BG for certain things. But are they the listed Brown County engineer right now? In other words, if we were doing something, are we solely to use them?
I don't think so,
Okay, I just wondered.
but. We tried, this bridge we're been trying to build for 3 years. They had another engineer that was willing to design it for $15,000, but we ended up being paid $30,000.
Because of the contract.
No, because we're where we were.
Okay. So we can't change what happened in the past so much,
But we could do
but
better.
but we can also learn from what happened in the past, right?
And then. What was Norfolk was the one that gave us an estimate on it.
Right.
And after they got it designed, it was another $100,000 more what they designed than what Norfolk had estimated cost.
Right.
So still not good.
Well, again, this is a problem that this isn't going away, guys.
So we need, I mean, I'm glad to be looking at different. things.
Oh, yeah, it's innovative. I think. I mean, and the reason you're seeing all these innovative ideas is because of these rising construction costs, just like insurance costs. They're not sustainable. You know, you get a county and you have 5 bridges get damaged in a storm that are major, and those bridges are on average $750,000 a piece. The money just isn't there. It's in small counties. So.
So do we have a direction here? Or is this just?
So. I think it'd be fascinating if we could do a survey through our road and bridge guys. They're, you know, they know these roads and bridges better than anybody. But just ask them to give us some ideas on, be interesting to see. What do they feel are the most vulnerable bridges we have right now? Just like the top 5. Don't make it, I mean, we have 195 bridges. But just say the top 5, what worries you the most, and just get that information in here. So we could kind of review that and say, okay, our guys are worried about these bridges. There's a reason for that. So shouldn't that kind of drive our focus if we know that we've got some bridges that maybe in the next 5 years are going to be a problem for us? Shouldn't that be in part of the Lexus, right?
I agree.
Okay. So when you ask, how do we move forward? I would think that we would do our own internal survey and kind of come up with what we think we're looking at.
Okay.
So that would be easy to direct,
I
right?
wonder what information Tammy has.
She might already have. it.
Well, DG, they have all the bridges that they inspect listed on how they, what they think is
Sure,
worst ones.
sure. And I would expect that if we asked our bridge foreman,
They might be the
our
same.
two bridge foremen, that's where they would be going first. I mean, they should have that information also.
But not necessarily.
Okay, well, this is a good exercise to find out. So we can ask Tammy and we can ask our bridge foreman, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. All right, is there anything else while we're still here in regular session? Gil, do you have something?
Well, I told you about an email or something I got about economic development plans that the state wanted them listed or something. But then I looked up in this House bill. I don't quite understand. I read through, it says on the back page, things have been repealed, so do you know what's going on?
I think that was more for like, Smith and, Smith, right there, you know, currently having, on the. Like,
Anyway. So I can't figure it out,
Okay,
but anyway, that's,
So your concerns look like they may have been repealed?
well, it's just a new law though, so how can? I know. You got your what you want for, whatever,
2304.
have that if you want.
Oh, okay. All right, I'll take it. Okay, so we added a work session for Thursday. 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock. And, you know, at one point we talked about some, I guess, some like new communication ideas between us and members of the public. So we might put that on as a possible topic for Thursday. When you say the survey of the bridge guys, does that mean that Richard Tesserero is gonna ask the bridge guys?
Yeah, I mean, that's a simple phone call.
Okay.
If you guys don't mind, I could just call both of them and say, hey, could you kind of, I mean, very simple.
Sure.
Give me your 5
Okay.
bridges that you're most concerned about.
Okay, so then we could talk a little bit, maybe would that be done between now and Thursday, or is that?
Yeah.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so then, what other topics may we discuss on Thursday, just general? Nikki, did you have anything in here that we needed to get on, make some progress on? As far as the work session, I see like the NRP public. Okay. 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 All right, well,
This probably a question for you, but has the state refunded any of that money yet?
Not a lot.
Okay.
If the county's important, that was like a vote back.
How that happened?
all right, well, it's the end of the meeting then. I'm just going over my notes. I don't see anything stand out really. So one of the things you told me, Richard, before you were commissioner, was at the end of the meeting, you would ask.
What we accomplished?
So ask it. I guess.
Okay, so what, did we accomplish anything today?
Or-
Yep.
Maybe don't reduce.
The answer is absolutely.
Yeah.
Right? And that's that. To make sure that we never become complacent, and that's all that's about, right? Because if we look at each other at the end of a meeting and go, well, you know, we seconded some motions and we approved some minutes and all that stuff, that's not very innovative to me.
Okay,
But thank you for remembering.
all right, well, I want to do what you tell me, because it's solid advice. So if there's no other new business or other old business, any business in front of the commission here, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
It's been moved. Is there a second? Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion carried. We're adjourned. Thank you very much. Wonderful job.